Well, President Trump not making friends in his own city. You know it's bad when on a political story, the Post and the Daily News are on the same page. Look at the tabloids today. Post says Trump versus New York. Daily News says screw York City. Yes, you can say that on TV. Of all people, you. Please. I hold my breath and my license every time with you. Anyway, they're talking about President's threat here to pull federal funds from sanctuary cities. Those municipalities that do not enforce federal immigration laws. New York happens to be one of them. It also happens to get billions of dollars each year from the federal government. The president also wants to bring back stop and frisk in a big way. As you know, New York got rid of that. And New York's mayor, Bill de Blasio, he's a huge opponent of that. All that has de Blasio basically campaigning like the president is his opponent come November. You know, it's interesting. And Shelley, for me, I get politically how this plays out. Cuomo says, start with me, you know, bring it on and all the rest, and de Blasio's. But I noticed in the mayor's budget, they didn't factor it in any way if the funding would be cut from the city and on the state level as well. How much of an unknown is this? And if realized, how much of a basically redoing of the math is New York going to have to do?
Well, I think that's on the sanctuary city issue, which we'll sort of have to see some of the details and whether it's constitutional or legal for him to withdraw the money as he claims. There's a lot, seems to be a lot of legal authority that he can't do what he said. But that being said, I think there's tons of things he can do that are going to be damaging to the state budget, and we don't know what they are, and we don't know the impact, and we don't know how we're going to fill the hole that it's created by whatever decisions. This is one of them that could be damaging not only to New York City, Syracuse, there's a number of cities in New York that have adopted this. And what if you don't have a sanctuary city, but you direct your police not to make it a priority?
And that, to me, Dominic, imagine the optics of this. The president forcing the feds in. I mean, this isn't like, you know, Kennedy sending in the troops, you know, to Alabama, Mississippi, you know, to break. This is now all of a sudden in New York. Police are told to stand down, you know, from the mayor or the governor in this case. Those cities don't comply. I mean, I just imagine the imagery here, how this thing looks, let alone for the people impacted.
Well, it's crazy what President Trump is trying to enforce, but that's what he's trying to do. The good news for New York City, de Blasio does have a little bit of a silver lining. He allocated $1 billion in his budget proposal, which is almost like a rainy day fund like Bloomberg did, where if they lose some of the federal money, he can use it in that regard. But think about this, Richard, for a second. So we're going to get rid of the sanctuary cities. And in the meantime, to protect the First Lady and your son, the city is spending $35 million a year. $35 million. So the good news is that this is going to court if the president, we don't know if this is a trial balloon or he's crazy enough to actually try and do it, but it's going to federal court. It's going to take years, hopefully, to enforce. And you know what's going to happen. If you're de Blasio, this has been the best thing for him politically because he runs against Trump as opposed to an opponent. But it goes to court, and you know what de Blasio or any other mayor is going to do. Okay, you're yanking our federal funding. We're yanking our dollars to protect your wife and son at Trump Towers.
Forgetting that for a moment, Barrister, the chances of either enforcing on a national level stop and frisk.
I don't see how he has the legal authority to take appropriated money and programs that are law and by executive order based upon their own internal policies say you can't have the money. It's a tempest in a teapot.
But how about federal immigration law? Isn't that a little bit easier to enforce than policing procedures?
The federal immigration law is not the prime law enforcement responsibility of the city cops. It's the U.S. immigration forces that do that. Whether you like sanctuary cities or not, all they're saying is that as a matter of local police discretion, they're not going to arrest people for violating the federal law. It's not a big deal.
And this didn't start with de Blasio. In disclosure, I'm working with Paul Massey, the likely Republican candidate for mayor this year. But this didn't start with Bill de Blasio. This goes back to Koch and to Giuliani as well, where the issue was illegal immigrants were getting
and Giuliani supported the premise.
Supported it. They were getting illegal immigrants were getting preyed on. You had young women getting raped, women in general getting raped, and they weren't going to the police, and they were wide open to it. So there had to be, they'd established some way that they could report to the police without being turned in, and that's how this started. And so,
And I would just think, David, I can just imagine your job if this were to actually move ahead and become more concept and theoretically reality, town by town, different communities. I mean, you think the Mount Kisco's is a whole different conversation than you would see in, let's say, a Scarsdale or whatever else. And how did the local police and how does the leadership, you know, who turns over what, who participates, who doesn't? I mean,
Well, we had this issue a few years ago when the
remember.
Secure Communities program was in. Was Brewster going to take part in it? Were the local governments going to take part in it? And the withholding of the federal money, I can remember back when they went for the 21-year-old drinking age. Now, they tied that to federal highway money, but they were linked. That was a linked, they linked the issues together by Congress, and they said that they were going to withhold the federal money if you didn't go to 21, and everybody went to 21.
that's right.
It's the same thing.
Right.
Speed limits, exactly.
But the
yeah.
reason that these things have popped up was because of the federal negligence on the immigration side. So the federal government needs to fix this as an entity, and that will fix it at the local level.
Let me let that be the final word, David. Thank you so much. And of course, we'll keep tied in with you as it relates to IP and the next various steps with it. All right, we come back, though. We'll stay with politics. Another Democrat defects from the New York State Senate, and he joins the breakaway faction. Will that derail Governor Cuomo's ambitious plans or not?